Welcome to the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, where we explore the impact of EdTech on the student experience with engaging, fun, and relevant conversations that honor the wide range of work happening all across the higher ed ecosystem. I'm your host, Dustin Ramsdell. I've been working in and around higher ed for the past decade, focused on student support and digital experience. Join me every week for discussions with some of the best minds in education technology who will be bringing you their perspectives on how digital transformation is reshaping the way we recruit, engage, and graduate learners. You'll hear firsthand accounts of how institutional leaders are developing their strategy, as well as get deeper on the stories of how these EdTech tools are being built to foster better student outcomes. With that, let's get to today's episode.
Welcome back, everyone, to our final bonus live episode of the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, recorded here at eduWeb in Orlando. I am here with LB, Laura Beth, from CLYDE, talking about AI in higher ed. We're going to kind of just feel our way through this one. I'll follow your lead about kind of what you're hearing and seeing, reflections on the event. But we'll start as we always do. If you want to briefly introduce yourself and your background, talk a little bit about what CLYDE does, and then we'll go from there.
Awesome. Well, great to see you here at the conference, Dustin. It's been fun couple of days so far. So LB, work at CLYDE, manage the higher ed practice that we have here. We are a PR and public affairs firm based out of Washington, D.C. But the fun part is we get to come to conferences all over the world, especially when it comes to higher ed and some other higher topic areas that we're following. But specifically wanted to jump down here in Orlando this week, mostly because seeing with the conferences like eduWeb, where a lot of higher institutions are bringing their marketing folks, their people who really are focused on enrollment, their web team, and their communications team. And everyone is really wondering, okay, enrollment is a key focus area in higher ed right now. I think everyone's following the news. I think it's something everyone's really focused on. I think as we think about visibility and how to capture eyeballs and how to capture student attention, it continues to get more competitive, and it continues to become, a topic that everyone cares about. And in the world of AI, I think AI has been around for a little bit, but in terms of how we're really focused on content and strategy and ways that people can get in front of their audiences a little better, I think the past 3 years have just really exploded and changed from a month-to-month perspective. And so we're really trying to help our clients in their higher ed space understand kind of what they're up against, help them with their content strategies, where to show up best for their students and families, and how we can just better guide them in directions like that. I think something that we continue to hear from attendees this week is a lot about what does their website look like? Do I have it optimized for AI? When people come to my website, are they finding what they need to? And something that we're, just helping give them guidance on is actually people aren't really going to your website anymore. You actually need to think about your website as an AI tool for AI to be sucking information out of, so that you can show up in summaries when people are searching and researching schools using LLMs or using Google now. But, thinking about your website as a content machine and rather not a clickable source that people are going to anymore.
Yeah, the times are changing, and I know, the zero-click apocalypse, is upon us. But it is just sort of that idea of the conversations we've had here, and just generally with folks here at the event, is like, there is kind of a reinforcement of good website design, kind of SEO fundamentals that can be kind of channeled into your sort of AI visibility strategy. But then, the idea of it almost being like, okay, you have your website as kind of your, digital storefront, or kind of I was thinking of a very twisty, windy metaphor, but the idea of people want to know everything about you. So then when they walk into the, physical or digital store or whatever, they know what they're looking for. They've done the research and that sort of thing. I think that's just been kind of a broader kind of cultural trend, is that people look at reviews and do all this sort of stuff before they buy something, where they'll just walk in and be I know the exact model that I want and the color and whatever, So I think, there's an aspect of that of obviously now that's so much easier for anybody to do, now, especially in higher ed, where, the massive complex organizations can now be, sucked in and summarized of whatever it is, the question that you're looking for. You don't have to go digging around, to find that. And I think it is a challenge, the shift and the change of the paradigm. But I think there is just a lot of great opportunity. And I appreciate, when I wanted to talk to you is like the idea of giving kind of empowerment and agency to folks, to kind of understand where they are, how they're showing up in AI search, and then providing them with the tools, kind of the assistance and the partnership to move forward in a positive way. Because I feel like there could be somebody who just does one or the other. I guess, like, it's just refreshing, I guess, to hear like, it's like, okay, we can like bring our muscle to bear in terms of like the PR regimen, that you have, and that sort of skill set and subject matter expertise. So I guess if you want to, just use it as kind of a segue, I guess, just to, reflect on the event. You're sort of noting, I guess, some of the like the conversations and things that you're having. Like, I don't know if there's been anything sort of surprising or other noteworthy things, I guess, around, your experience here at eduWeb, or eduWeb. I think it was tomato, kind of thing. I'm realizing some people call it the, eduWeb. I guess of like just this event. Cause we're kind of, almost done, the second full day. So just using the event, reflecting on that as a way to kind of just continue to explore sort of like, kind of like the stories or the questions or things that you're hearing from folks that are here.
Yeah, a lot of people are asking us questions around this idea of a formula, right? So when a lot of people are thinking about, when I did SEO, there was a formula of how to get discovered. What's the balance I need to do from a social media perspective, from a paid perspective, from earned media perspective? Like, give me that formula. And, it's an imperfect answer because there's not a formula where it comes to AI and GEO. What we are helping guide people on is it actually matters about how you're sourced. And so an interesting thing that we have gone through with people is after asking AI a question, we had a couple of institutions look up their own institutions with AI from a reputation standpoint. And then we also had them act as the student researching their school of like what they would be searching for. And what we asked them to do was, okay, now ask AI what they sourced to get the information. And I think that kind of blew people's mind because they were like, oh, this is where AI is pulling my information. Now, how do I influence the source at the end of the day? So I think a lot of workshops, including the one that we did, but a lot of the ones that I've been attending as well are definitely involving this idea of not formulaic things anymore. I think a lot of people are exploring what the future looks like with AI. And then another thing I've noticed are people then saying, okay, great. How do we report on metrics now that things are changing so much? So what does it mean when page views goes up? Is that a good thing? And what decisions need to be made after that? So I think it's now what do we do with all these stats and information in this new age of getting people's attention? So, as PR professionals, it's definitely something that we're focused on in terms of delivering the best value to our clients, because we don't want to just say, hey, good job, your page views went up, but what does that actually mean in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, and I guess on that point, like, because there's not going to be a formula, sort of doing like these, autopsies in the sense of like, you're getting results and then you're kind of interrogating the results, like why, and it's not, I guess, an imperfect science, but I guess it's the idea of like nothing's ever going to really be like, perfect black and white sort of like, but the idea of what has been wild, I guess, is like that I feel like we spoke about it briefly at your booth with PR and like press releases, whatever else. Like, it is interesting now, like the idea of that AI search like craves that or loves that or it's very helpful and all that. And we've mentioned it briefly in another conversation, but I want to give it, I guess, a little bit more. I'm sure like you can speak to, I guess, in a maybe fuller context of like, why is that? Right. And then just sort of like, is it now this sort of like resurgence or rebirth of the like, the value and the importance and the utility of press releases? I'm sure some people are just like, well, yeah, whatever. It's sort of just like a industry thing or whatever. It's just kind of this very like, insular kind of thing where like, oh yeah, people in the industry probably want to know like what other people are doing or whatever, so just speak to that. Like, why is it now that much more important, and how do you see it kind of fitting into like a higher ed institution's kind of, digital marketing strategy?
It's real. Press releases are back. Wikipedia is back. Things I think 5 years ago where we were telling clients like, you probably don't really need to do that anymore. They're back, baby. And it's so interesting. This fall, we had a higher ed client lose 70% of their website traffic because of AI. So what that meant was people were going to AI, asking questions. They were not showing up. And all of a sudden, their enrollment through Click dropped by 70%. They came to us and they were like, what do we do? When we did an audit and an analysis of like, okay, where is AI getting information and why are they not showing up? We saw that the majority of sources were being pulled through press releases. So we developed a press release content engine strategy from there, building on things that we wanted to announce through press releases. We put it on the news on their website. We made sure it was showing up in their own content. Within 3 months, we saw AI start pulling through that content. So, that's a really specific example where we saw a press release strategy work. Now, with another client, we actually saw that a lot of the AI summary was being pulled through Reddit conversations. So we said, hey, have you ever thought of a Reddit strategy? Have you ever thought of a paid content promotion through Reddit? And they were like, no, we've never done Reddit before.
Yeah, it was also one of those things where it's like the humble message board, like again, another sort of like resurgence, whatever. I know like Reddit's been this sort of like slow, kind of steady, drumbeat and stuff, but like obviously at its core, it is a message board, and the idea that like, yeah, again, it's sort of like what's old is new again, and now this is sort of like, back in the spotlight. So yeah, it's wild.
Exactly. So I wouldn't say the press release content strategy is right for everyone. I think it really does take a look at that research and audit and saying, okay, what percentage of the sourcing is coming through where? And then let's help you create that content engine for it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting because, yeah, I mean, like I've been just through all my kind of variety of roles and things that I do, like, getting more in sort of the PR world. And I think I sort of, speaking from my own experiences, it felt like it was sort of, again, like kind of a frivolous or, like it didn't take a lot of effort, but, I couldn't really draw like a straight line of like, around like building awareness for, a company, like an EdTech company that I'd be working with or something. But yeah, I think it's just, on one hand, again, there's a lot for me that I guess trying to dissuade people from the like intimidation or the ambiguity or sort of daunting nature of it. Sort of like, again, that idea of like what's old is new again is like, all right, let's build on prior knowledge and try to like, harness that to then kind of like, steer you in the right direction to, certainly figure out if, some of these things are going to be the right thing to do at this moment for, what your goals are. But that, I guess, just trying to reassure people that it's not as if we're just like completely throwing out the entire playbook. It's just like, we can kind of pivot and utilize, maybe some workflows that maybe were neglected or just not harnessed at all. Because the idea of like, hey, should we like try to do stuff on Wikipedia or whatever, like different things, like build it out and like, contribute to that or, whatever else. So,
yeah, we had someone raise their hand the other day in our workshop, and he was like, so let me get this straight. Everything that I'm doing is right. I just need to think about it in these ways. And we're like, correct. You're doing all the right things.
Right. He's like checking his notes. Like, if my math is correct, I'm doing right.
Exactly. And something else that was surprising that we shared was we're seeing a lot of the top tier media block AI crawlers, right? Because they're not getting money from that if AI is crawling their news and then people are getting their news that way. Okay, well, how are news organizations going to make money? So, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, they're creating partnerships with very specific LLMs. So what we're helping clients also realize is that, yes, top tier media is always wonderful and the visibility is great. But what AI is going to do when they read a article that they can't get into is then look for tertiary articles and say, okay, where are the proof points in that? Who else wrote an article that said the same thing as the New York Times? And they're going to pick up that instead. So what we were saying is like, yeah, look, New York Times is fabulous. That's great. But what about the trades? What about your local media? AI is going to go to that to check its source. And then that's what's going to end up in your summary. So you kind of need to think about not just landing that top tier mention, but what are your syndicate strategies afterwards as well?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I've spoken to some people that like started to explore the world of PR. That's sort of the classic thing. Where like, yeah, of course, everyone wants to be on the front page of the New York Times and like just like make it happen. The idea of like, okay, like let's not move heaven and earth to try to make that happen. If it happens, amazing, great. We'll harness that and try to take advantage of it. But yeah, almost again like on that sort of empowerment front, the sort of like democratization of like that idea of like trying to figure out other outlets and avenues that could be productive, I guess, in the sense of like again just knowing very clearly like what your goals are, what's kind of your time horizon. Yeah, just like using that to inform, your goals, time horizon, resources, and those sort of things to, you're doing the right things at the right time, the right way. And as we're winding down, final two questions I'd like to ask. Certainly, if you want to build on anything you've already mentioned or just something completely different, trend line that you were following, that you're eyeing on the horizon that you feel like people should know about.
Yeah, I mean, not to beat a dead horse with AI and what we're following, but I think it's just going to keep continuing to change. And something, we're definitely trying to keep track of is it's every 30 days, right? And so another trend that we're communicating is that I think soon Google announced that they're also going to try to help consumers better understand what they're searching. And if there's enough content out there, they're going to create their own landing pages for it. And so I think going back to what we were talking about with websites, if Google is creating its own landing page for you, you now care what they're putting out, because all of a sudden a student or a family member is going to go to Google's landing page instead of yours and what's being talked about there. So that's definitely something we're following, just continuing to follow what Google is putting out in terms of, I think everyone's like, oh, what LLM should I use? At the end of the day, no matter what age group you are, it's most likely going to be Google. I think people have their favorites, but Google uses Gemini. So thinking about it from that perspective as well. And then something, we just try to help people look at is the more people are using a certain LLM, it almost becomes less popular. And then a new one will sprout up or more investments will come into that. So we're just trying to pick up on the trends as fast as they're moving and help communicate that as quickly as possible.
It is really interesting, I guess, like something like that sort of dynamic of like the landing page thing, I guess, just crystallized, I thought, the idea of like forcing your hand to like reckon with like, oh my gosh, yeah, we got a lot of outdated information out there. Like it's like you really got to do like a, really proper kind of content inventory. It's a challenge, but it's an opportunity. It's, important work to keep everything updated. And yeah, because I think, I'm sure, again, you're getting that question all the time of like, even from a institutional leader's perspective of like, well, I want to show in ChatGPT or whatever, like that they would kind of think of like, what's the best LLM that I should show up in, or how would like, and it's kind of like, again, trying to kind of like, some of that is all just noise, because it's like whatever the next one is, whatever the hot one is that just got the new feature, new funding, whatever, focus on the tactics that sort of like work in this realm, in this world, and sort of AEO and everything. And I guess try to not get too distracted by the noise of all this kind of stuff. I think again, there's sort of just like the tactics, the fundamentals, and all that is pretty I don't know, I guess like we're getting our arms around it, I think, a little bit better right now. So I think it's just like, take advantage of this moment to kind of get moving, in that direction. So
yeah. And I think it's scary, but also good to know that there are two audiences we now have to think about, right? So when you're communicating online, you have the human that you are trying to, get your message out there to. And then you have the bots. This is the first time in internet history that more than 50% of the users on the website are bots instead of humans, because they are being trained on AI models. So now you're thinking, okay, I need to write so AI bots will consume my content, and I need to write to make sure humans know what options that they have. And it's a really interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, just bots talking to bots, and
here we are.
It's a brave new world. So we'll wrap up. Final question we're asking everybody: advice that you would give to other higher ed leaders navigating this moment.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think to reiterate, everyone is doing the right things. Don't feel like you need to boil the ocean. I think you need to stick to the basics of what do you want to be known for? What do you want to stand out as? You can't be everything to everyone. AI will swallow you in that perspective. I think it's still saying, we're the best at this. So let's keep our content and our strategy focused on that. And let's do what we can to be the best in that. I think what we're seeing is, people saying, well, what do we do about all of this? Stick to the basics. It is a new world, but I think we can tackle it together. And don't boil the ocean.
Yeah, always good advice, especially in this context. And I think, I mean, that sort of like the really like top level institutions need to kind of like, differentiate, know what they do well, lean into that. And then that can, manifest in sort of your, digital marketing, kind of AI, visibility strategy and everything. So I think, very good advice. Appreciate you for sharing all you did with ways to connect with you and CLYDE in the episode description. Great conversation. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks so much, Dustin.
Thanks for listening to the Higher Ed Geek podcast. This show is a proud member of the Enrollify network, home to Higher Ed's largest collection of podcasts. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow. So be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, video clips, blogs, and more. Visit Enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and content drops directly to your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com.